to Community Crypto from CoinDesk TV. I'm your host, Isaiah Jackson, and this week we have the Tucson, Arizona Bitcoin Meetup Group talking about the impact of Bitcoin in their local community. I'm joined now by Alex Dischinger, host of the Tucson Bitcoin podcast and member of the Tucson Bitcoin Meetup. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks, Isaiah. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Been a long time coming. Glad to speak with you, brother. And just to kick it off, I wanted to ask you, Alex. You are a big proponent of for Bitcoin and its use case. So exactly how did you become orange pilled, so to say, and when did you discover Bitcoin?
Yeah, I got into Bitcoin. I was working in social work and studying it in school to become a therapist. And I realized I was probably going to be not making a lot of money in my career choice. And so I started looking into investments in 2018. And I went through the Dave Ramsey series, which was, really awesome and helpful. And um, somehow stumbled across Bitcoin and read the Bitcoin standard, and the idea of hard money influencing time preference blew my mind, and the implications that that had on people. And that was when I became really orange pilled for the first time.
Oh yeah, and we all go down that rabbit hole, and it's great to realize that hey, we've been lied to about, a lot about the financial system, and to learn that there's better money available. And and once that comes about, one thing that we do from that point is start meetup groups, and we get with other people that are like-minded. So I want to ask, how did the Tucson Bitcoin Meetup Group come about? How did you guys form?
Um, I don't know. I just wanted to get with other Bitcoiners in Tucson. And so I threw up a meetup page, and Stephen Cole in Phoenix reached out to me at some point and wanted to leverage kind of a meetup network across Arizona to reach different communities. And so we now have 3 meetups across Arizona. So that,
You
yeah.
and where are those three meetups? You have Phoenix, Tucson, and where's the other one at?
And we're having our first one in Sierra Vista, Arizona, which is south of Tucson, on the 28th.
Oh yeah, and the reason I definitely wanted to have you on is this is sort of a different type of meetup group where you're connecting local cities close to each other in the same meetup, whereas some places it's just one city. So I love to see that. The more the merrier, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
My goal is
and
to, oh, my goal is to get meetups in every corner of Arizona.
mhm. Oh yeah, and it looks like you're well on your way, definitely. So how so far in the Tucson Bitcoin Meetup group? What are some of the things that have helped the local community as far as education, as far as events? What are some of the things that have helped them specifically in that area?
Yeah. So I run a podcast. I think that puts out some good information for people. Uh, but Steven has done, some good Bitcoin one-on-one talks, and we have speakers come periodically through, specifically up in Phoenix. We can't find anybody to come down to Tucson yet, but that's been helpful for just community engagement. But I think just having people from all different walks of life get together and go out into their different parts of the community to talk to people about Bitcoin has been really helpful.
And that's great, right? Seeing people from different walks of life, different demographics, but we all agree on one thing: Bitcoin, right? So get into a little bit. What are some of the demographics? What are some of the professions people have? Some of their backgrounds, young, old. What are some of the demographics of the group?
Yeah, I'm usually the youngest person in the group, which I'm kind of disappointed with. That's just kind of how it rolls with the circles I roll in. But yeah, we've got programmers, we have people working for the University of Arizona, we have lawyers, we have people in the medical profession. There's a hospital in Tucson that accepts Bitcoin. So people of all different walks of life, and I think that's cool. But the people that I want to target in the future, are people that would um, have the most to benefit from it beyond it just being an investment, to be able to use it and send remittances home, because Tucson has a huge immigrant population, and I think it would benefit them a lot.
Oh yeah, and let's get into that a little bit because in different parts of the US, Bitcoin has different use cases, right? Even in different parts of the world. So let's get into that a little bit with remittances. How has that impacted some of the people in that community because there is a large immigrant community?
I don't know. I haven't really heard anything specific. I think I've had the opportunity to talk to people from different parts of the world, you know, in Africa and stuff like that, or places like that, where there are a lot of remittances being done. But unfortunately, I haven't heard a ton. It's something that I'm, you know, working on with some members of the Phoenix group of, you know, how do we go into these communities and share Bitcoin in a way that's effective. And I think the unfortunate thing is crypto oftentimes has a bad name for it, you know. And so when I tell somebody about Bitcoin, they tend to look at me and say, "Oh, well, my son bought Dogecoin," you know, or something like that, and um, that's not very helpful for context. Like we have a better form of money that people can be, you know, using and greatly benefiting from outside of just this crazy speculative asset. So
Yes, and of course, we do know cryptocurrency is very speculative, but Bitcoin is different, right? Different conversation, different principles, and that's another question I wanted to ask. Is like you just said, some of the newbies, some of the people show up. What are some of the things that newbies ask, or some of the most frequently asked questions? Is it about Dogecoin? Is it, hey, what's Elon Musk doing? Which is a question I hate because he has really nothing to do with the industry. But what are some of the questions you get from newbies for the most part?
yeah, so typically people are interested based on price appreciation, and that's the thing that they're most concerned with. So they hear the flashy marketing things, um, and I don't dabble too much outside of Bitcoin. Like I pay attention a little bit to be able to explain it to people and the differentiation between Bitcoin and other projects. But that's typically what they want to know, and they'll ask me, you know, outside of Bitcoin, you know, what else would you be interested in? And so I think that's influenced by unit bias. It's influenced by the size of the market cap, and they're looking for um, upward potential and price movement rather than, you know, fundamentals of, you know, what it is a currency. And so I tend to explain to them, you know, it's like you have your money all in fiat and it's depreciating. Houses have almost doubled in the past 5 years in Tucson, and you just cannot be doing that. Do you want to have your money in a money that is not going to be inflated to infinity, or do you want to have your money that has a set monetary policy? And so that's
Mhm.
where I tend to try and bring them and educate them on is what's happening in the monetary system, how it's predatory, how inflation is hurting them, and how even if you have like a traditional financial portfolio, it's probably not competing very well with inflation. And uh, that's where I try to, you know, take them because I think that's what's actually beneficial instead of, you know, trying to make a quick gain to, you know, buy something nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That mindset that a lot of Bitcoin people have. I always tell people, say, if you want to know the difference between Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I always say them, would you sell whatever X coin, pancake swap, whatever coin, would you sell it at some point? And the answer is usually always yes. And then you talk to Bitcoin and say, hey, would you sell? And it's like almost always no. Like, no, I'm never selling. So it's different conversations. So I love that you point out that difference. And is it safe to say that the Tucson Bitcoin meetup is Bitcoin maximalists to an extent? Do people who come there they need to understand that we're talking about Bitcoin monetary policy? Other questions can be answered, but aren't the focus.
Yeah, we focus solely on Bitcoin. That's something we try and do with the Arizona Bitcoin Network. And the reason why, you know, ultimately is uh, the system is broken. Like the house is on fire and people are getting devastated as a result of it. And that's what our primary focus is on is helping people out of this burning monetary system. So, yeah.
So, Alex, let's pivot here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that may have gotten in the way of these meetups. Last year we had the pandemic with COVID, where a lot of people were not going outside or were not able to meet in person. How were you able, and how were others able to keep the Tucson community involved and engaged in this meetup group?
Yeah, I think what's awesome is we have an online presence, and I think the Bitcoin community is it happens a lot. A lot of it happens online. I'm in like 20 different Bitcoin Telegram groups that I keep up with. So we had Zoom meetings periodically, but I think we can, going forward with better information, we're going to meet unless like, there's some nuclear catastrophe and we have the ability to, do that, like go outside in the park and barbecue and do things. Because I think like ultimately it's a big challenge right now is to not be demoralized with all the crazy stuff going on. And a big part of that is having, some security and safety and having Bitcoin, where there's certainty tied to it rather than fiat currencies or, stock portfolios. But another big part of that is actually being together with people. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So, in your opinion, in-person meetups are better networking than online? Because I tend to like in-person meetups myself. So, do you think in-person meetups do the trick better than sitting online?
Yeah, I think both are great. I enjoy getting together with people in person, personally, because there's just a whole another level of depth to it. And we do an online book club that we're going through. I've been a part of a few online book clubs over the past year, and it's been
Mhm.
really great to know people. But there's something about just getting together in person. With the people that I've met online that's really incredible. I think that's why the conferences are cool. I've unfortunately only been to one this year, but I plan to go to more in the future. But yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. We got to have the Tucson and Phoenix mashup conference soon, so look forward to that. Definitely. And moving forward into Phoenix a little bit, I know you're not there per se, but what is the Bitcoin groups like in Phoenix, and how are their meetups? Are they similar to Tucson? Is it different, or is it kind of meshed together?
yeah, the meetups in Phoenix are awesome and they're super high energy. I think Tucson, there's a little bit more groundwork to be laid, and I'm not saying that to try and disparage what we have going on here because it is absolutely fantastic. But I think the infrastructure is built out there a little bit more. There's been a meetup, another one that's been around for, I don't know, a long time, maybe 5 years or so. And the energy is really cool. People, again, people from all walks of life. We have VPs of massive companies coming. We've got, CEOs, we have VCs, we have all sorts of interesting people that are coming, and we have people that are. It's just so cool that new people can walk in and have access to awesome people like Stephen Cole or Will Reeves or my buddy Santos who works at Zebedee. People that are actually in the industry and can have really good quality answers for the questions that they have.
Yeah. And that's all important, right? Having good information. Because a lot of people they get information online, they can learn from people, but is it good information? Is it from the right source? And that's what I'm seeing here in Phoenix with their meetup group as well. Like you said, one of the oldest meetup groups in America, I believe. So definitely some good infrastructure there, and building that out with Tucson, with the Sierra area is going to expand it even more. Can't wait to see it. So I just wanted to ask you, as a Bitcoiner, how do you feel about the new infrastructure bill with the provisions about crypto that could make you and I, who have wallets, basically brokers? Do you think this is regulatory oversight or overstepping? Or do you think that they'll try and rein it back in? This is just a test.
Yeah, I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to government. I'm a bit of an
Mhm.
anarchist, and so I figure that they're going to lash out as hard as they can eventually at anything they see as a threat to their power. And the majority of their power comes from being able to issue the currency. They won't be able to fund all of these, crazy endeavors if they don't have that, and they won't be able to continuously expand. And that's not very beneficial to them. And so I think, ultimately it comes down to individuals of whether we're going to comply because it's an inevitability. Are we going to allow the destruction of our communities because they tell us that we can't do something? And I think, fortunately, just the attitude of Americans is they're not going to put up with it. But there has been some lobbying attempts, in Congress. I think that's good. I think we have a lot of people in our corner that are going there. Kelly Lummis seems pretty awesome. Big
Yep.
fan of her. Uh, but yet again, I don't have a lot of faith in the political system. I mean, we saw Ron Paul go in to Congress, ask all the right questions, try and audit the Fed, and not accomplish a ton other than create this awesome message of liberty and a movement that came out of it of awareness. His book and the Fed is so good. Um, and I think that has really led a lot of people to Bitcoin and given them a tool. I think we underestimate how powerful this tool is. But at the end of the day, I don't think they really care about us.
Mhm.
And I think they're, if they harm us, it's whatever. I mean, we've seen it over and over again with all these wars, the war on drugs, now the war on terror is coming home. They they don't care, and I think we just have to treat it as that and try and eliminate their power in our lives as much as possible.
Oh yeah, and I'm with you there. I think this was an attempt to slide in some sort of regulation. Because think about it, what does crypto have to do with the infrastructure bill? Absolutely nothing. And I think this was just their way of trying to slide it in there, try to show us that they're supposedly trying to help us. When again, as you know, governments haven't necessarily done that over the years, haven't seen that evidence. But one thing I wanted to ask you, you did mention Cynthia Loomis in places like Wyoming. You have Mayor Francis Suarez in Miami trying to turn into a Bitcoin city. Evanston, Illinois, they have their own Bitcoin program as well. Even Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. Do you think starting small communities with Bitcoin as the focus will be a trend that picks up in the future? And if so, do you think the same thing can happen in Tucson and Phoenix?
Yeah, I'm really optimistic. I think Bitcoin is a bottom up approach, which stands in contrast to the fiat monetary system, which is a top to bottom approach to things. And I think that's what's ultimately going to happen. I think those communities that decide to adopt Bitcoin, to adopt a money that actually serves their people instead of victimizes them, is going to be
Hmm.
huge, and we must support them however we can. I mean, the stuff in it, I, El Salvador, it's probably going to be messy. It's the first time they're doing this, but the stuff that they're doing in El Zante with Mike Peterson and Bitcoin Beach is so incredible, and I think that that's what I'm really excited about is not what the governments choose to do, but what the people choose to do. And I think, people will ultimately make good decisions. But yeah, I need to look into Evanston. I grew up right next to Evanston, so that's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I feel like these small communities, just like Evanston or any other place, because it's a bottom up approach, they will have struggles. First man through the door gets shot, right? But once it's established, I'm sure it'll be nothing but people copying it and trying to use that template for the future. So great to see. And speaking of the future, before we get you out of here, what are some of the Bitcoin projects that have you excited about the future?
I'm really excited about the Lightning Network. First and foremost, it's just unbelievable the possibilities that can be built on there. So people listen to my podcast and they can stream me sats. So for content monetization, I think that's huge to get away from advertisers and censorship. Uh, but yeah, the Lightning Network is the payments network or payments layer of Bitcoin, and that's what you're seeing spring up in El Salvador. Is they're not using on-chain payments, they're doing these small transactions that can even be microtransactions. And so what's coming out of that is Bitcoin video games, which I play periodically. I'm pretty terrible at video games, but the stuff that Zebedee's doing is so fantastic. We're working on launching some Bitcoin gaming meetups in
Nice.
Arizona because I think that's huge. But it's going to create this economy that we could have never imagined, of just all of these new things based on micropayments and small transactions. But I think it's huge because Tucson in particular is passing some pretty bad laws in regards to trying to tax immigrants, and it just blows my mind that they acknowledge that people are here illegally and they lock them out of the financial system, and now they want to tax them. They don't have any representation. and it's just so predatory. And I think people in situations like that are on the lower end of the spectrum have a lot to gain. And then, using tools like Fold, where people can spend uh, cash and earn Bitcoin on every transaction. They don't have to put any capital or take on any risk, and they can start earning Bitcoin and saving money that's appreciating and turns into meaningful savings over time is absolutely phenomenal. So those are definitely some of the projects I'm excited about.
Absolutely. And shout out to my good friend Will Reeves, CEO of Fold App. Definitely a great project. And of course, I'm very excited about Lightning Network, just like you. So we'll talk more definitely next week in Phoenix. Glad to have you on. I appreciate you, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in person. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. You have a good one. And that's it for this episode of Community Crypto. I'm your host, Isaiah Jackson, and every week we're building a global community with local crypto groups. So be sure to tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern on CoinDesk TV. See you soon.